It's done. It's done. You won. Yep, it wasn't about Kavanaugh at all. It wasn't about the court. It was about you, the system that protects you, something called due process. But first, congrats to you, Democrats. This is what happens when you decide to burn the village in order to save it. And because of that, Republicans finally found their stones. After so much lunacy that we were forced to stomach by a media who would swallow anything, like the New York Times report that Kavanaugh once threw an ice cube. I guess the gang rape thing didn't work, so that was your backup? What, you couldn't find anyone to blame him for a wet willy? And there was the third accuser's claims imploding all over the place, much like Michael Avenatti's presidential aspirations. He did more to harm the Democratic Party than Bill Clinton's cigar. Meanwhile, the media ignored holes in the accuser's story so large you could steer Michael Moore through them. And so after the FBI investigation found zilch, the swing votes went to Kavanaugh, led by Susan Collins, a Republican who went to the Senate floor and methodically explained why she thought Kavanaugh was fit for the bench. She smoothly dismantled the anti-Kavanaugh arguments and painted him a moderate, all to convince the libs that Kavanaugh wasn't a monster, but more like a Smurf. Were they listening? Were they listening? No, the left mocked her because they prefer their women to think only one way, this way.
It's a great honor to be able to introduce for the first time ever anywhere
So, this is a great day. Kavanaugh and Trump may well have saved the country by defeating the mob. And we are all vulnerable to the mob. The mob is defined by these things: subversion of justice, punishment without evidence, a willingness to discard individual rights and protections for immediate political gain. A mob is defined not by diverse voices, but by people imitating one sound, the sound of rage. And that's why it's so scary. The mob is an unbending beast in which intimidation is its only commodity, which is why it's not about Kavanaugh at all. It's about you. It's about your kids, your siblings, parents, spouses, because the mob can happen to you, which is why this next election is huge. We must teach the mob a lesson. But if you don't want to listen to me, then just listen to this guy.
We need to teach the Democratic Party a lesson that they will never forget, that you don't F with our system, you don't F with our due process, and you don't lynch somebody based on some scurrilous accusation.
I love tossing to myself. Look, we're not savages with torches and pitchforks anymore. We're civilized. But everything awful in this world had to start somewhere first. The election is when you try to stop it before it gets any worse. Let's welcome tonight's guests. Yes, she spells doom in the courtroom, attorney Emily Compagno. He's a comedian, radio host, and your Uber driver. Fox News host Tom Shalhoub. Yes. She's so bright, glowworms follow her home. National Review reporter Kat Timm. And he can literally reach across the aisle. Former WWE superstar and my massive sidekick, Tyrus. So, Emily, you're a lawyer. I'm going to be honest with you. I actually really didn't care about this whole process, the Supreme Court nomination. It was something that I felt was out of my power. It just happens. I didn't care about this story until the left made me care about it. It got me mad, the intimidation and the lies. I think that's what happened here. I think we saw a process get subverted.
the process was 100% ignored. That was the whole point. And, you know, I've seen as an attorney firsthand what happens when the court accepts as true allegations or statements that are uncorroborated. I've been a character witness for 2 separate false accusation trials, and I saw that the ripple effect can't be overstated. And of course I support the Me Too movement professionally and personally, obviously, but one does not equate the other, and it's a ridiculous subversion of justice too to accept those allegations. To me, that gender equaling automatically a truth, it does no one any good whatsoever.
You know, Tom, you don't have to agree with Kavanaugh's philosophies. I don't think the vote was about that anymore. The vote was a defense of a system, the defense of due process.
And I like what you said about the mob. I was almost tearing up, Greg.
Really? It might be allergies.
I have been emotional all week, and you've probably mentioned this. I don't know, Greg, but our great hero, Andrew Breitbart.
Right.
He always spoke about what drove him to become political. It was the Clarence Thomas hearings. You remember? He would always say that. And the anger he felt with a man being, with due process being thrown out in that case, he became the right-wing activist that we all know and love.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people in this country it's going to be the same thing. I feel like there's a lot of people out there, people calling to my radio show, a lot of women, Greg.
A lot of
women calling my show saying, I do not like what's happening here. I have brothers, I have husbands, I have sons, or husband.
But most of those calls are wrong numbers. A lot of people call it into your radio show because the number is really close to like a fast food restaurant in their neighborhood.
But they all call in.
They all call in. Kat, I think the lesson for me, and you can agree or disagree, or I'd prefer you to agree, it's about a tyranny of the loud and the few who seek to intimidate the American public. That's the ultimate goal. That's how I feel. How do you feel?
I think that's a thing. I think that could be a thing.
Yeah.
Look, I think this was really tough. I was watching this and just thinking to myself, I am so glad that I'm not a senator. Because, I had the hardest time today deciding whether I wanted chicken or beef on my BBQ bowl. And that is slightly less consequential than deciding who should sit on the highest court in the land.
Right.
But as you alluded to earlier, I think we have one person to really thank for this, and that is Michael Avenatti.
Yes, you're right.
Because when he brought up all of those incredible, insane gang rape allegations stories, it made people kind of tune out.
Yeah.
Watching Dr. Ford's testimony, that was an emotional thing for me. I watched that and I had a tough time deciding who to believe. And I think a lot of people, once they brought out the gang rape stuff, kind of stopped listening to all of it, and where they were more willing to believe Brett Kavanaugh's denial. So I don't know if the White House has sent him like a thank you card or like an edible arrangement.
Yes. No. You know, Avenatti excited more Republicans than Fox News.
I would agree with that.
I thought that was funnier in my head. Tyrus, you don't have no pity applause. No pity applause here. Tyrus, it's amazing how this travesty looks now when you look out. Like 2 weeks ago, when you're inside of it, it seems so horrible and ugly. And now when you step out of it, it seems like, did that really happen? It's weird.
I did my best not to get in it.
Yeah.
I'm not, when it comes to judges and stuff, I tend to just not want to be around it.
Yeah.
Don't have great experiences with judges in general, so I try to avoid him like the plague. But to go back, Avenatti, I know we're laughing about it, but he concerns me because he was using fear and just crazy allegory to try to ruin someone's life and move himself ahead. And I think there has to be some type of legal precedent for somebody to come out and do what he did, attempted to do what he did, and then he can just regroup and do it again.
No, that's the thing. It scares me because the American Bar Association is talking about how concerned they are over Kavanaugh, and Avenatti, they haven't said anything. The guy should be disbarred.
I mean, he's using people to advance himself. Like even Stormy Daniels, listen, she's had a rough life.
Yeah.
But I don't think, if you look, when history looks back at this, he ever served her well.
No.
She ended up having to pay.
Berries.
She had to pay the money
The
back.
White House should send him some Sherry's berries.
No, it's terrible.
She's going to have to pay the money back. No one's going to want to buy her story, and he's going to hit her with a fat bill.
Yeah.
Like, it's literally, he does not help anyone. Maybe he's a secret agent for the Republican Party.
Yeah.
Maybe we should look at that.
No, he did more help for the Republicans than supply-side economics.
A strong argument can be made that he violated a ton of ethics laws. Absolutely.
Yeah, and he won't go away.